The gods don't speak from above. They ride. This isn't metaphor. This is not ancient poetry or distant myth. In the sacred traditions of Vodun, Ifa, Candomblé, and Za, when the drum speaks and the breath slows, divinity doesn't simply descend. It takes hold. It enters the body. It borrows the voice. It dances in the spine, speaks in tongues, cries through unfamiliar eyes. Possession is not just a moment of spectacle. It is a sacred encounter. The raw, unfiltered interface between human and spirit, flesh and force. But what truly happens when the gods ride? What does it mean to be possessed? Is the body overtaken? Is the soul displaced? Or is it something deeper, a merging, a collaboration between self and spirit? In trance, ordinary time dissolves. Language gives way to vibration. The mind loosens its grip, and something else, older, wiser, hungrier, steps forward. Possession has been misunderstood, exoticized, feared. But in these traditions, it is not performance, it is power. Not entertainment, but embodiment. To be possessed is not to lose oneself. It is to become more than oneself, even if only for a moment. In Haiti, the Loa of Vodun descend into chosen bodies, dancing wildly, laughing, healing, scolding, blessing. In West Africa's Ifa tradition, the Orishas arrive not just in temples, but in people. Sango thunders through limbs, Yemoja weeps through song, Ogun strikes through motion. In Brazil's Candomblé, the Orixas mount their devotees with such intimacy that generations have witnessed possession as survival. The dance of the enslaved who refused to forget their gods. And in the ritual circles of Sudan, Ethiopia, and beyond, the spirits of Za come not to destroy, but to heal, entering bodies, especially of women, to bring voice to grief, to trauma, to power long silenced. This is the world of trance and possession, where the veil between seen and unseen is not thick, but porous. Where the divine does not just visit, it inhabits. These traditions stretch across continents and centuries, rooted in the deep rhythmic intelligence of Africa and its diaspora. They speak of a truth too large for doctrine, too embodied for text. This is not a metaphorical descent. This is the arrival. This is the ride. Trance is the doorway. Possession is the arrival. In spiritual traditions across the African continent and its diaspora, trance is not simply a mental state. It is a carefully cultivated threshold. It is an altered state of consciousness. But unlike the randomness of dreams or the blur of intoxication, trance is entered with intention. It is ritualized, rhythmic, and relational. Trance is the tuning of the body and spirit to a different frequency, one where the divine can interface with the human. It is the frequency of invocation, of merging, of transformation. To understand possession, we must first separate it from trance. Trance is the condition. Possession is what happens within that condition. Think of trance as the signal and possession as the response. A person in trance is not necessarily possessed. They may be on the edge of spirit contact, in dialogue with their own subconscious, or experiencing a visionary state. But when possession occurs, something specific happens. Another presence enters. It speaks, it acts, it temporarily lives within the host body. There is a shift, not only in behavior, but in energy, in gaze, in voice. The individual becomes a vessel, not emptied but filled. Mediumship, on the other hand, differs slightly. In many Western spiritual contexts, mediums remain conscious, acting as translators or channels for spirit communication. The spirit may speak through them, but they do not surrender their bodies completely. In possession traditions like Vodun or Candomblé, the surrender is total. The possessed often has no memory afterward. Their body, voice, and gestures are fully animated by the spirit. In some communities, it is said that they are no longer themselves. In truth, they are more than themselves, temporarily fused with the sacred. From a psychological lens, trance and possession have long been misunderstood. They've been pathologized as dissociation, hysteria, or mass delusion. But this view collapses under the weight of cultural context. Within their native traditions, these states are structured, respected, and repeated with consistency. They are not accidents or signs of illness, but deliberate technologies of the sacred. Anthropologists like Erica Bourguignon and Felicitas Goodman have documented trance and possession rituals around the world, finding that these states are more common than most cultures acknowledge and are often key to emotional healing, communal bonding, and spiritual growth. Culturally, the idea of riding captures the relationship between spirit and host. In Haitian Vodun, for instance, the spirit is the horse and the person the rider, but with an inversion of control. The lower mounts the devotee, directing their body, actions, and words. In Candomblé, the term incorporation is used, incorporation, implying that the deity is not merely touching the body, but becoming part of it. In Za traditions, the spirit does not ride aggressively, but enters in a way that reveals inner affliction or buried grief. And in Yoruba, Ifa cosmology, the Orisha may mount a devotee not just to perform miracles, but to realign the community through their presence. The act of riding implies movement, force, will. It is not possession in the sense of ownership, but possession as inhabitation, as communion. It is not the violent takeover imagined in horror films, but a sacred dance, an invitation. The one who is ridden is not passive. Their preparation, the fasting, the prayers, the dancing, is what makes the body ready. Possession is not a loss of control. It is the fruit of discipline. It is the reward of devotion. The gods ride those who are open, those who are chosen, those who are aligned. Ultimately, trance and possession are not aberrations. They are part of a continuum, one in which the human body becomes a bridge between worlds. They remind us that the line between self and spirit is not fixed, that consciousness is not a single channel, but a spectrum. To be in trance is to knock on the door. To be possessed is to let the guest in. And in many traditions, that guest is not a stranger. It is family, it is ancestor, it is God. In the sacred rhythm of Haiti's Vodun tradition, the line between human and divine is not a wall, it is a doorway. And through that doorway, the lower ride. They do not descend like distant gods. They arrive like invited guests, like family members long expected. In Vodun, possession is the most visible, dramatic, and sacred act of communion. It is the moment when a person becomes more than themselves, when their body is mounted by a spirit and speaks with a voice that is not their own. In this world, divinity is not abstract, it is embodied, and the gods ride not in metaphor but in motion. The lower, or Loa, are the spirits of Vodun, each with distinct personalities, powers, and domains. They are not omnipotent gods but powerful intermediaries between the human world and the supreme creator, Bondi. They are spirits of nature, history, family, and fate. Some are fierce warriors, others seductive lovers or stern judges. Papa Legba, for instance, is the gatekeeper, the one who opens the way for all other spirits. He must be saluted first in every ritual, his cane tapping, his speech cryptic, his wisdom deep. Ezuli, the lower of love and beauty, often arrives weeping, carried on the shoulders of emotion and longing. Ogun, the warrior, comes with fire, heat, and rage, pacing, sweating, demanding action and respect. To summon the lower is to enter a ritual technology refined over centuries. The mechanics of possession in Vodun are precise. It begins with space, the temple or peristyle, often marked by the sacred symbol of the wave drawn on the ground in cornmeal or flour. These symbols act as sigils, spiritual codes that attract specific lower. The air is filled with rhythm. Drummers beat specific patterns, each one designed to call a particular spirit. Songs are sung in Haitian Creole or African-rooted languages. Their verses part invocation, part instruction. As the energy builds, the dancers, often initiates or those known to be spiritually sensitive, begin to sway. The bodies become loose, the eyes glaze over. Then suddenly, the moment arrives. A scream, a collapse, a tremor. A person is seized. They may fall to the ground or stand rigid before erupting into unfamiliar movement. Their voice changes. Their mannerisms shift. The lower has arrived. When the lower rides someone, it is not mimicry. It is full embodiment. The possessed may drink rum laced with pepper, smoke cigars, speak in tongues, or perform feats beyond their ordinary capacity. Ezuli may demand mirrors and perfume. Ogun may brandish a machete. Each lower brings their own gestures, tastes, taboos. The community gathers not to gawk, but to receive. Messages are given, blessings dispensed, wrongs corrected. The possessed becomes priest, judge, healer, even if only for an hour. To be possessed in Vodun is not to be overtaken by a hostile force. It is an honor, a sacred responsibility. It is seen as a sign of spiritual alignment, of chosenness. Those who are ridden are sometimes trained for years, going through intense initiations, rituals of cleansing, sacrifice, and secrecy. They learn the songs, the histories, the spirit's preferences. The bodies are prepared like altars, ready, worthy, and open. But possession is not always gentle. Some lower arrive with force. Some bring emotional storms, tears, or violent tremors. The experience can be ecstatic, but also exhausting. Afterward, the individual may collapse, the memory of the event blurred or erased. What remains is the imprint, the sacred residue of having been a vessel. They carry the mark, the charge, the shift in their aura. They are not the same. In Haiti, Vodun possession is not superstition. It is not theater. It is not madness. It is divine participation. A spiritual interface passed down through blood, music, and memory. It is the sacred act of letting the spirit in, not through belief, but through body. When the Lowe ride, they remind the living that the divine is not distant. It walks among them. It breathes through them. It dances in their bones. And in every ceremony where drums echo and vivis glow, that truth rides again. In the spiritual world of the Yoruba people, the Orishas are not distant cosmic forces to be worshipped from afar. They are living intelligences that walk among their devotees, speak through them, and sometimes ride them. Possession within the Ifa tradition is a sacred encounter, a moment where the veil between human and divine is lifted. The Orisha does not just visit, the Orisha becomes. Sango cracks through the atmosphere like lightning, fierce and electrifying. Yemoja rises with a slow oceanic calm, maternal and powerful. Ogun storms in like iron on fire, demanding order, justice, and movement. Each Orisha arrives with their own essence, and when they possess a devotee, their presence is undeniable, unmistakable, and often overwhelming in its intensity. Unlike spontaneous possession, which might occur in response to a spiritual emergency or moment of vulnerability, possession in Ifa is often structured, intentional, and deeply embedded in initiation processes. The journey begins with divination, often performed by a babalawo, a trained priest of Ifa who serves as intermediary between the human world and the sacred wisdom of Orunmila, the Orisha of destiny and divination. The Babalawo reads the client's spiritual signs through the casting of sacred instruments, interpreting their Vodou, complex binary patterns that reveal not only the seeker's condition, but the spiritual prescriptions needed to realign with their destiny. Initiation into the priesthood or deeper spiritual roles often involves preparation for divine possession. Devotees undergo rituals of purification, offering, and learning. They study the temperaments, symbols, taboos, and rituals of the specific Orisha. When the moment of possession comes, the body is not caught off guard. It is prepared, conditioned through ritual, rhythm, and relationship. In the dance, in the chanting, in the heat of community prayer, the Orisha enters. The possessed person may shout, tremble, cry, or dance uncontrollably. They may wear the regalia of their Orisha, embodying the sacred colors, emblems, and gestures associated with that force. And as they speak, what comes through them is not personality. It is divine frequency. One of the most powerful dimensions of Yoruba possession is its communal function. This is not merely about personal ecstasy or revelation. Possession provides clarity for the community. A possessed devotee may deliver messages, reveal hidden illnesses, identify the source of spiritual imbalance, or guide the group in resolving conflicts. Possession becomes a form of spiritual leadership, not hierarchical, but experiential. The divine moves through whoever is prepared, regardless of social status, gender, or wealth. In that moment, the community is not following a person. They are listening to a god. The ancestral dimension of possession is also central to Yoruba cosmology. Through the Egungun tradition, the spirits of the ancestors are called forth, not as memory but as presence. Dancers wear elaborate flowing costumes and masks that cover the entire body, concealing identity and transforming the individual into the ancestral spirit itself. The Egungun moves through the village, blessing, warning, dancing, possessed not by an Orisha, but by the lineage itself. These performances are not mere spectacles. They are moral correctives, healing acts, and celebrations of continuity. Through the Egungun, the dead return, not to haunt, but to heal. Possession then is not a disruption, it is instruction. It is how the divine corrects the human. It is how the ancestors continue to speak. And it is how the community stays aligned with the sacred order of the cosmos. In a world where healing is often fragmented and justice delayed, possession within Ifa provides an immediate, embodied connection to truth. It bypasses bureaucracy. It transcends language. It commands attention not through force, but through presence. In Yoruba tradition, the Orisha does not hover in abstraction. The Orisha mounts, speaks, dances, weeps, and draws through the bodies of the devoted. And when this happens, when Yemoja flows through a woman's tears, when Sango lights up a man's chest with fire, when Ogun pushes a crowd into righteous movement, the community knows that God is not far. God is here speaking through breath and body, calling the people back into rhythm. In the rhythm-drenched temples of Bahia, Brazil, the air itself seems to pulse with memory. Here, in the sacred tradition of Candomblé, the gods are not confined to scripture or silence. They arrive in the body, moving through hips, shoulders, feet, and voice. This is not mere faith. It is choreography. It is survival. Candomblé is an Afro-Brazilian religion born from the collision of pain and preservation. Enslaved Africans, primarily Yoruba, Fon, and Bantu, brought their spiritual systems across the Atlantic, only to be met with brutal attempts at erasure. Yet instead of vanishing, these systems evolved. Hidden behind Catholic saints, merged with new rhythms, and sustained through the language of movements, the Orishas, now known as Orisas, found new ways to ride. Candomblé is a masterwork of syncretism, a sacred blend of African cosmology and Catholic imagery, born out of necessity and spiritual genius. To outward eyes, a worshipper might appear to be praying to Saint Barbara, but within the circle, they are calling Sango, the god of thunder and fire. Saint Lazarus becomes Babalu, Aye, the spirit of healing and disease. These substitutions were never acts of surrender. They were codes, a way to hide what must be preserved. Through this sacred camouflage, African deities survived centuries of colonization, persecution, and forced conversion. Trance in Candomblé is public, powerful, and profoundly embodied. During ceremonies called tokes, initiated devotees gather in circular temples known as tereros. The ritual begins with drumming, specific coded rhythms designed to call specific orixas. The rhythm is not background noise. It is the signal, the invitation. As the music intensifies, devotees begin to move, the steps matching the ancestral cadence. The air thickens. The sacred energy, known as Akse, begins to rise. Then it happens. The body begins to tremble, the eyes roll back, and the Orixa enters. A trance state overtakes the dancer, who now no longer moves as themselves, but as the deity they serve. Dance in Candomblé is not ornamental. It is functional. Each Orixa has specific movements, rhythms, and gestures that communicate their nature. Yansa spins and whips the air like the storm winds she commands. Oxum sways with watery grace. Ogun stomps with the heavy stride of a warrior. These dances are not interpretations. They are invocations. And through them, the gods are not only remembered, they are made present. Gender also plays a powerful role in this divine embodiment. While Orixas may have gendered identities, the bodies they ride do not always match. Men are mounted by female deities, women by male deities. In the world of trance, identity is fluid. What matters is alignment, not anatomy. Possession in Candomblé is not just spiritual, it is political. It is cultural resistance made visible. During slavery, possession was a way to retain identity when everything else had been stripped away. To be possessed by an African deity on a plantation was to declare that one's body still belonged, at least in part, to something sacred and sovereign. In the face of brutal control, divine possession was one of the only forms of selfhood that could not be taken. It was not owned by masters or churches. It answered to older powers. Today, Candomblé continues to carry this legacy. Despite centuries of oppression and marginalization, it thrives, especially in Afro-Brazilian communities who see in it not just religion, but resistance. It affirms blackness, ancestry, queerness, and bodily wisdom. It teaches that the body is not merely a vessel of labor or lust, but a site of divine revelation. That dance is not entertainment, but invocation. That trance is not escape, but return. In Candomblé, the Orixas do not whisper from a distance. They arrive in drums, in sweat, in trembling limbs. They step into the circle, find the dancer, and ride. It is not metaphor. It is memory. It is survival. And it continues with every beat, with every spin, with every sacred breath. In the quiet corners of homes and sacred spaces across the Horn of Africa and the Middle East, an ancient rhythm begins to pulse. It starts low, a deep, steady drumbeat, and then rises, gathering speed and force. This is the sound of the Zar, not a spirit in the sky or a deity in scripture. The Zar is a presence that lives in the margins, in the body, in the unspeakable spaces of pain and power. It is both feared and familiar. And when it comes, it does not knock. It demands entrance through breath, through voice, through trembling limbs. For centuries, the Zar possession cult has served as both sanctuary and battlefield, especially for women whose suffering could find no other name, no other release. Zar is a complex spiritual system found in countries like Ethiopia, Sudan, Egypt, and Iran. Though variations exist across regions, its core revolves around spirit possession, music, and ritual healing. The Zar spirits are often seen as entities that attach themselves to individuals, particularly women, causing physical illness, emotional turmoil, or psychological distress. But unlike other spiritual traditions where spirits must be exorcised or cast out, Zar takes a different path. These spirits are not banished. They are negotiated with, honored, and sometimes even celebrated. The ritual is not warfare, it is diplomacy. Women are the primary participants and often the spiritual leaders of Zar. In patriarchal societies where women's bodies are controlled, their emotions silenced, and their pain medicalized or dismissed, Zar rituals provide a sacred space for expression and healing. When a woman falls ill with no visible cause, headaches, fainting, depression, chronic fatigue, it is sometimes said that a Zar has taken residence in her. The only cure is not a pill or a surgery, but a ritual. One that acknowledges her suffering not as weakness, but as a spiritual calling. The healing process begins with drumming. The rhythms are specific to the Zar spirits said to be inhabiting the woman. The drum beat does not just set the mood. It acts as a frequency match, tuning the space to the spirit's preferred vibration. The room becomes charged, incense is burned, sacred songs are sung, often in a trance-inducing cadence. The women begin to move, slowly at first, then with more urgency. The afflicted woman enters a state of altered consciousness, her body responding involuntarily to the beat. She may shake, cry, scream, or laugh. The Zar makes its presence known. What might seem chaotic from the outside is, within the ritual, a sacred unfolding. The woman in trance is not shamed, she is held. Her body is not a spectacle. It is a sacred text being read aloud. Other women support her, dance with her, sing to her, and sometimes join her in trance. The possession is not punishment, but a form of communication. The spirit's grievances are heard. Maybe she broke a taboo, ignored the calling, or simply carried too much unspoken pain. Through song and movement, a dialogue begins. After the trance, the Zar spirit may be appeased with offerings, perfumes, incense, or items the spirit favors. Sometimes the woman must wear certain colors or avoid specific foods. In doing so, she acknowledges the spirit not as an enemy, but as part of her spiritual ecology. These post-trance agreements are less about superstition than they are about reclaiming power over one's body, one's emotions, and one's story. Zar rituals are a paradox, deeply personal, yet profoundly communal. They address individual suffering, but always in the presence of others. They blur the lines between sickness and spirituality, between madness and meaning. And they offer a rare form of healing, one that doesn't erase the wound but gives it a voice, a drumbeat, and a dance. In a world quick to medicalize and pathologize pain, Zar reminds us that some traumas are spiritual in nature, and some cures require song, sisterhood, and spirit. It reminds us that possession is not always invasion. Sometimes it is invitation. An invitation to be heard, to be seen, and to be healed. Why do spirits possess? Why do they enter the body, ride the breath, and speak in trembling voices? The answer lies not in fear or fantasy, but in the very heart of what it means to be human, spiritual, and connected to forces beyond the visible. Spirit possession is not random. It is deliberate, meaningful, and often necessary. It is a form of divine communication, a way for the sacred to speak, act, and intervene when ordinary language and logic fall short. Into traditions across the African continent and its diaspora, possession is how spirits make themselves known, how ancestors issue warnings, how deities administer healing or deliver justice. Possession allows the invisible to become visible, the silent to become vocal. When a spirit rides a devotee, it is using the human body as a medium, not just to express itself, but to create transformation. The voice of the possessed becomes the voice of the divine. Their gestures, cries, and movements are interpreted not as random, but as sacred utterances. This is not mere performance, it is testimony. In many cases, spirits possess not because they want to dominate, but because they must be heard. Because a message needs to be delivered, a wound needs to be acknowledged, a community needs to be corrected or consoled. In this way, possession is deeply relational. It connects the living to the spirit world, the past to the present, the body to the cosmos. It is not an escape from reality, but a deeper immersion into it, a way to see the layers beneath the surface. The person in trance is not lost. They are found in another dimension, one where speech, silence, and song intertwine. Psychologically, possession can also be understood as a profound form of catharsis. It gives people permission to express what they may not consciously understand or culturally be allowed to feel: grief, rage, ecstasy, fear. The metaphysical layer, however, reveals something even deeper: that the spirit world is not elsewhere. It is here, beside us, within us, watching, waiting. And when the time is right, it speaks, not through thunder or scripture, but through breath, through dance, through the trembling voice of the possessed. Possession then is not a breakdown. It is a breakthrough, a sacred moment where the soul stretches to hold what words cannot, and the divine rides home. When the divine arrives, it doesn't always come with fanfare or fire from the sky. Sometimes it enters quietly, in a tremor, a scream, a dance. Possession is not the terrifying spectacle we've been taught to fear, nor the distant myth we've been taught to dismiss. It is divine intimacy, a sacred closeness where spirit and body become one, where the veil between seen and unseen is lifted for just long enough to let the holy breathe through skin. In those moments of possession, when the god rides, we witness something astonishing. The infinite stepping into the finite, not to destroy it, but to animate it, to awaken it, to remind it of its place in the great cosmic rhythm. To witness possession is to witness mystery, but it is also to witness care, healing, justice, and connection. These are not episodes of madness. They are ceremonies of memory. They are echoes of ancestral knowledge performed in real time, on real bodies in communities that have survived centuries of erasure, by remembering how to open their arms to spirit. Whether it is the Loa in Haiti, the Orisha in Nigeria and Brazil, or the Zar in the Horn of Africa, each tradition shows us that possession is not something to fear, it is something to honor. The person in trance is not lost, they are chosen. And our role, if we are not the ones being ridden, is not to doubt, mock, or dismiss, but to witness, to respect, to remember. Possession reveals a world where the gods are not abstractions, but relatives. Not theories, but voices that cry and sing and dance through us. It is a reminder that the divine is not confined to altars or texts. The divine walks among us, in rhythm, in ceremony, in breath. So if this video stirred something in you, if you've ever felt the hair rise on your neck during a song, or your spirit move in a way you couldn't explain, like this video, if you carry a story, a ritual, or a memory of spirit close to your heart, share it in the comments. Let this be a space of remembering, not forgetting. Subscribe to this channel if you believe that our bodies are more than bone, that they are temples, bridges, vessels. Because when the divine arrives, it's not to take something away. It's to give something back. A message, a memory, a moment, a ride.